In this episode, I talked to Peter van Garderen from the project Landano. Now, he is an archivist, someone that looks after collections of data, and there's probably no one else better suited to work on this project than him, as he has worked on many archival projects over the years, as well as gone through many publications. And I did do a little bit of digging into his background. I do this for all of our guests now to see what he's done, his experience and everything around it. And he certainly does have quite a resume and list of presentations and publications that he's written over the years. So he's definitely someone to look towards for this type of subject matter. Now, he's working on Landano as well as OrcFax and Arkly, these other products that are part of the ecosystem for Landano as well. And we'll get into that in this interview, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's get into the interview. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Pete. It's a pleasure to be on here.
So let's start off and learn a little bit about your crypto background, your journey, and how you got into this space, and then how you started this Landano project.
I've been around the crypto space for quite a while now. I was an early Bitcoin investor. I had for a long time, 20 plus years, been a free open source software developer making software solutions for the archives, museums, libraries sector, as well as record keeping for major international organizations and government organizations. So I am a professional archivist by trade, and so I design digital archive solutions and record keeping systems. And that community is very much committed to privacy and open access and long-term access to information. So when blockchain first came around, myself and some staff were very keen on it early on. I had one of my staff members was an early Bitcoin miner. And so very early on, I was always interested in the technology as kind of something new that we hadn't seen before, this idea of distributed consensus. So I've always kind of just followed it as an investor, as a researcher, as somebody doing R&D in digital archives, digital preservation space, very keen on the record keeping aspects of it. And so was always doing a number of side projects. And then this past year, had the opportunity to enter blockchain space full time. There's a lot of things that have come together in the last few years. I think it's the right time to make a transition for me, try to apply that digital archives and record keeping expertise to the so-called Web3 space. And I've deliberately chosen the Cardano community for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is that it has a great treasury, community-run treasury called Project Catalyst, which funded a couple of my projects, including Landano, which is how I find myself now, putting a team together to build a land right record-keeping solution on the Cardano blockchain, and getting Project Catalyst funding for that, and applying for another round of funding now to hopefully get us from where the progress we've made with our minimal viable product and our pilot project testing to try to transition that to an actual production solution on mainnet that provides land right records in compliance with record keeping standards and leverages the Cardano blockchain to do NFT minting for these land right records.
Absolutely amazing. How good is Project Catalyst? It's
Right?
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned a little bit about Landano. It's essentially record keeping for land rights, etc. Is there any more that you want to elaborate around that? Because you mentioned NFTs in there as well.
Sure.
So how does that whole land rights
There's quite a bit to
system
unbundle from a technology perspective. And, as an archivist, as a software developer, there's so much exciting technology that I get so excited about. And so I quite often go on these long tangents and, I'm happy to explore that further with you. But I think, first and foremost, what's really cool is that I think we are able to provide something unique and different that to date we haven't, as far as a type of record keeping solution that actually solves a real world problem. Land rights are super fundamental to governance of a country, right? And how you tax your assets, and so you have money to run your country, and build your national infrastructure and so forth. But also, it's also very foundational to personal wealth and self-sovereign, financial independence. If you can prove that you own a plot of land, which many people do by virtue simply of inheriting it from their family, or being part of a community that their family's been part of for generations, If you can prove you own that land, then that opens certain doors to us in the Western world. We can go and apply for a mortgage. We can apply for a home improvement loan. I can apply for a business loan to buy a tractor or some piece of equipment, or if I'm a farmer, to borrow seeds. Actually being able to prove that you have right to land is usually one of those financial primitives that you can offer to a bank or a lending organization to say, here's something of value that I have that's very fundamental, and I don't want to screw up the access I have to those rights. So I'm very likely going to be somebody that's going to, if I'm putting up equity, so lend me some money, and I'm putting up something very valuable in return. And so that's a very basic thing that we take for granted in the global north and in Europe, North America, and other further on developed type financial systems. We kind of take that for granted that we can do that, but in a large part of the world, that's not the case. At least 1 billion people around the world go to bed at night worrying about whether they still will have their access to land, their property, or other kind of real property will be taken away in the morning, and that's like a real serious concern. So we've developed some very cutting edge technology to kind of provide a solution to that at a technical layer. We can't solve all the problems. This is a multi-layered issue and problem, but the best that we can do is provide a leg up technology-wise to people in these situations to say, we think we've got a pretty interesting solution to help you with this problem, to help you claim your land rights. And once you've done that, to be able to take the next step into like decentralized finance opportunities, which are all, brand new and cutting edge. We're making those up as we go along in the so-called DeFi space. So in a lot of ways, in many ways, we can use this technology to leapfrog people's current socioeconomic situation. So how that actual technology works, you can ask me some more questions if you like. So like it is an actual NFT. The land records become a non-fungible token. The land parcel itself is a unique polygon on a map somewhere in the world. There's only one plot of that land. And the types of rights that might be associated with it can vary. So it can include ownership is only one type of right. So is leasehold. So is the right to profit, like to sow seeds and grow a crop and profit from that crop. You might have right of way. So the right to use a road on that particular property. You could have grazing rights, water rights, so forth. So what we're doing is creating an NFT for the parcel of the land, and then creating a bundle of documentation for those particular rights that might be issued against that land. And then the key thing we're doing is we're collaborating with local community leaders in sub-Saharan African countries that have post-colonial constitutions that recognize traditional land rights, which means that we are not the land registry office. We want to work in close collaboration with the Lands Commission office in Ghana and find ways to facilitate their business processes. But to be quite honest, like that's part of the problem right now is that people are not able to deal with the Lands Commission for a number of different reasons, for cost, for just physical access. It might be far away, and just complexity, and the systems themselves being in a variety of stages of maturity around the country. So what we're trying to do is kind of fill in this gray space in between, provide solid record keeping that is not, we're not saying this is a high quality record because we put it on the Cardano blockchain. The fact that we use the Cardano blockchain is just one more component in a standards compliant, legally compliant record keeping system that gives it additional weight and then opens the door to Cardano based DeFi opportunities. So that's kind of our approach.
Okay. Now, it's really good that you have that experience in the archival space and record keeping to be able to actually do this and do it properly to a certain standard. Because, if you're approaching government level organizations around the world, not just one country, but, multiple countries around the world, it's really good idea and really good that you have that kind of experience in the back end there to be able to cover all those aspects. Now, this really touches me personally because back in the Vietnam War, my family were in the South, and a lot of the land that they used to own was taken away, and they don't own it anymore. They own a little bit, but most of the land rights were just taken away, and they don't have access to it anymore. So having this kind of record keeping back then would have been extremely useful, so that they could actually claim that they used to own it, and get some rights back in some respect. But there's some government issues there, but that's a different thing. But the solution and everything that you're building around it sounds absolutely amazing. And it does sound like there is a lot of technical aspects behind it. And I also know that you're partnering up with other people in the industry to actually make this all happen, such as IMX to provide identities and around all those aspects too. Can we just touch on a real high level aspect on how the tech stack of this works so that people get an idea of how it's built, what to expect, and then also how some of these other solutions such as IMX ties into it all?
Yeah, we first and foremost don't want to reinvent the wheel, and like where, we think we have enough complexity to tackle with what we're trying to provide and do a good enough job at what we're doing. So, we very consciously have right from day one have said, okay, when there's an existing community partner that has the same values and mission as ours, like really, as far as when I say that, I mean like Cardano RealFi, like using Cardano technology as a brand new tool that we can address social change and within the world, and use it as a tool for social good. And so there are many projects working in Cardano in the community that we're very fortunate to like now network with and feel a part of as a community that we're going forward together with. And so internally we are doing a lot of innovative technology ourselves. In fact, one of our own R&D, we've spun off into a sub-project called Arkly, and that is the component which takes the supporting documents. So it might come as a surprise to many people, but you can't stuff a layer one blockchain like Cardano full of PDFs, JPEGs, and MP4s. It only has 16 kilobyte transaction space per transaction, and even that is costly. So over time, common practice is you create checksum hashes for documents and you store them somewhere offline. Offline, but ideally it should be available online. It should be resolvable to some kind of like link resolver. People have been using IPFS for this kind of functionality to have a decentralized storage system backing up those documents. In our case, we're working with a technology called Arweave, which is a decentralized storage network, which has an upfront storage endowment model, which is quite innovative. And so realizing that other Web3 projects would need this as well, we've kind of spun off a separate Web3 service called Arkly that provides the front end to the Arweave network and bundling and archiving and retrieving and indexing archival information packages, whether your business processes, this case happens to be land right records, it could be something completely different like music records or NFT records or so forth, that Arkly provides that as a separate Web3 service. So that's a technology we've integrated, and that's kind of like a sub-project now that we're kind of partnering with to provide the long-term availability of supporting documents that are part of the land, making a land right claim. And the Cardano technology we're obviously using to mint NFTs. We're doing a very interesting dynamic NFT design because we have a core right, which is somebody claiming the existence of a land parcel, and then we have all kinds of like fractional rights branching off of that. So it requires a more sophisticated NFT design, and we're doing some really interesting work with the current Plutus version 2 and the post Basel technology to implement that. And then it's like, we don't necessarily want to become DeFi providers ourselves. We want to provide the primitives, the documents, the trustworthy documents that you as a lender can say, okay, these people have gone through the Landano process, and we understand what's happening in that process. It's very transparent, it's well documented, and there's good records around it, and the records are all compliant and blessed by the appropriate authorities. So when we see somebody with this record and we can prove they say who they say they are, which is where something like IMX comes in, it's like the verifiable credentials and verifying that people are who they say they are. Then we are willing to lend them $1,000 to buy seeds this year against that. So now we're coming into like, the microfinance kind of space, like Kiva kind of space. So those two things, like actually lending the money and proving identity, are two key pieces where we say, let's partner with existing projects in the community that match our values and our mission, and are also still very technology driven. So we've been close. Just this past week, we've had calls again with Empower and IMX to make sure our development roadmaps are in sync. So IMX definitely is the key provider that we want to integrate with. And as a matter of fact, we've named them explicitly in our Project Catalyst Fund 9 proposal to say, this is some of the work that needs to complete now. We need to, we've had our own basically like placeholder for our own wallet and ID provider. But now we need to make sure that we can benefit and leverage all the really cool things. And IMX truly is like doing some really innovative things in the DID space, decentralized identifying space, as far as like being like the type, how secure their technology is for securing privacy, for recovering from loss of passphrases, to integrating with existing telecom providers to onboard as quickly as possible, to collaborating with us on like biometric type solutions that we need for our undocumented illiterate type client users. So IMX is turning out to be a great partner in that respect, and also like very much a leader in the Cardano Catalyst space, and likewise for Empower. So Empower has a model where they provide crowdsourced funding for development of like whole neighborhoods, so like 30 homes at a time. So we're looking at how we can integrate our solution with something like that, where perhaps a whole village is looking to do a development. We want to look at more microfinance type loan scenarios as well. The entire Cardano DeFi space has been kind of waiting for the Vassal hard fork. So there's a lot of projects that are like us, have been kind of stealth and just kind of waiting our time. Some projects have the strategy like, we're just going to announce and promise the world and have a token and buy our token and join our Discord. And, that's all fair game too. But I think people don't underestimate the amount of projects that have just been doing their due diligence, good R&D, and are just kind of biding their time right now. And so we're talking to some interesting projects like that we think could also offer us other pieces to the solution. Where with Landano, we stay focused on like, let's do the one thing right. Let's make sure we get land right records correct. Let's provide a cheaper alternative to a parallel system to lands commissions, land registry processes. And if we can do that, we provide a really critical piece of the puzzle that's often been overlooked for anti-poverty work. Is like just getting land tenure security in place. It's a huge stepping stone for upward financial mobility.
So it's really cool that you guys are doing all that, all the partners that you have lined up. Empower, absolutely fantastic project. We did an interview with them recently as well. And also IMX, which was just released before this interview too. So it's absolutely fantastic that you're partnering up with all those people in the ecosystem. Absolutely amazing projects. And if anyone hasn't listened to those interviews before, check them out in the show notes. Now, it sounds like you guys have quite a team behind you building all this out. How many people on your team? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, approximately 10 now. And it has been like really a great evolution of building that team, like the right people appearing at the right moment in time. Right from the outset, like I was interested in doing land right records on Cardano. It's been a personal interest actually, like of mine for a number of years. And so I only thought of doing it on Cardano when I saw another person propose it in an idea skill, and that ended up being my co-founder, Doris Vandercroft. So just a random person on idea skill going, hey, we should be able to do something about land right records. I have experience living in Ghana, and my partner's from Kenya. And we got this conversation kind of rolling on an idea scale. And I was like, well, I have one project already. I'm also lead for a project called OrcFax, which is an Oracle project. And so if I'm going to start another project and be serious about it, I don't want to do it by myself. And so Doris and I really hit it off. And it's just one of those like catalyst stories where we just met online and, just hit it off as people, as personalities, I consider him a friend now. Somebody but we still yet to meet physically in person. But working very closely with for the past few months now on building out this team and building out this vision. It's going about our business, establishing these relationships. And a lot of it is Zoom calls. Like it's just people you meet online and say, hey, I think we might be able to offer each other something. Kind of just having an open mind. And like, I think Catalyst really encourages that kind of like, that kind of vibe and like, that kind of collaboration. And it was a critical part to like getting Landano up and running. Like it wouldn't exist without that kind of ecosystem and that kind of like nurturing we got early on. And then, as we solidified around an actual project and we got funding, it became more deliberate. Like it became like, okay, from a human, like both Doris and I have a lot of industry and business experience already. So that's something that we can leverage now. And we can say, okay, from an HR perspective and a budget perspective, who's the next piece of the puzzle? What kind of talent are we looking to fit in? And we've been very fortunate that we can both leverage our networks and bring people into the Landano solution and the Landano sphere. So there's a number of like existing digital record keeping experts that are contributing to our work. We have built local relationships in Ghana, once again, through Catalyst. WADA has been a really critical part of that. So the WADA Alliance is an African blockchain education and training kind of association, and that's been very closely tied to the early days of Project Catalyst as well. So we built some great relationships in Ghana through that. And now we have, when we say team now, there's like, this X amount of people, around 10 people that are getting paid to work on the project specifically. But now, of course, we also have like actual partners that we're collaborating with and contributing work collectively to the mission. And one of those really important ones now happens to be the Institute for Liberty and Policy Innovation in Accra, Ghana. It's a think tank that's working on alternate policy, socioeconomic policy to improve the financial conditions of people in Ghana. And they're very keen on, blockchain and decentralization as one tool and methodology to help with that kind of policy change. So now we've collaborated. Now they have local lawyers that are helping us with our legal evaluation. So it's just, you just keep doing the next right thing and putting your foot forward and doing the work. We find that our network keeps building and expanding, and I think part of that is the fact that I think we're really onto something. I think people respect what we're trying to do. They understand that it's important, and they can see that we're serious about what we're doing, that we're deliberate about what we're doing. So just feel really fortunate and blessed to kind of have this kind of be able to do this very interesting work and see the kind of like the work kind of unfold in front of us.
How cool is that? It's kind of like a match made in Catalyst. it's absolutely awesome to hear that. I heard of a couple of projects starting off that way, and it's turned out really, really well. So I'm so happy to hear that Project Catalyst is doing some awesome things and forming these amazing projects. You also mentioned real quickly and briefly there that you're trying to start an Oracle as well. OrcFax, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Okay. That
is a separate project, but I am the founder of that project as well, and it is also at a very early stage. Been waiting for Vassal as well, but I mean the Landano and OrcFax are very much like closely tied to why I made the transition from being a digital archivist, software developer, and consultant to saying, hey, it's finally time to do something more serious about Web3 and blockchain. In that I can apply this knowledge I have about how to build proper digital archive systems, how to apply record-keeping standards that are concerned about authenticity and accuracy of information to some key blockchain technology. And so one of them, first and foremost to me, was oracles, this idea of like these things that like take real-world data and report it on-chain, and then these very important socioeconomic decisions are being made with that data once it comes from some off-chain source. I see that as being like, there's lots of room for improvement as far as like improving the trustworthiness of those like information pipelines and how they get from off-chain to on-chain. And so that was kind of my first entry into some serious Cardano work. I've been doing kind of prototyping and R&D for a number of years already, but when that got a Catalyst funding, that got me more serious about Cardano. And then because of that, then I kind of stuck around and was like hanging around at DSkill. And that's when I found out about this other person wanting to do land records. And that's why I said, okay, I'm willing to do yet one more thing, but then I definitely want a co-founder. I don't want to do it by myself. So Doris and I, fortunately, that worked out really well. But yeah, that's it. And I see the two being interrelated because I think I mentioned earlier that we kind of spun off this record-keeping archiving component from Landano into its own kind of Web3 service called Arkly. And so OrcFax is the other client for that. So this OrcFax, this Oracle infrastructure that's going about collecting data from data sources, data providers, that's putting it through a decentralized Oracle pool to validate the information, and then to actually create data points that get published on chain. The whole audit trail and all the provenance data for those things should be archived as well. And that's what we're using Arkly for the OrcFax, is to archive the provenance audit trails of like how off-chain data gets on-chain. So that's yet another use case. But another use case could be, these are very important documents that you need to gather so you can prove you have a land right. And so then when the land right document gets issued, it's one of a series of documents that have produced up to this point, and we bundle that as one package and put it away in archival storage as well. So that's another reason why in this case, Landano would use the Arkly API. And we already, in talking to lots of other projects, realized that there's a huge demand for that in the Web3 space in general, because, like off-chain documentation and having persistent links to it is like one of those dirty secrets that in the blockchain space that doesn't get talked about enough, but it's a real requirement. And it should be truly decentralized. It shouldn't require some centralized, S3 and Fura kind of like API, right? So that's all part of the puzzle, the technical puzzle. So
okay,
yeah, that's lots for me to chew on in the meanwhile.
One interview, 3 projects essentially now. So this is absolutely amazing. Okay, I have to go through all of this and put them in the show notes for everyone so they can follow up the OrcFax Arkly, then Landano. It all flows through that kind of
thing. That's right. Yeah, it does all fit together eventually when so it's hard to tell the whole story in one shot cleanly, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely awesome. So I'm assuming with the Oracle and the file storage system platform that you probably will be able to go cross-chain with all of these solutions and services. Is that the plan? What's the roadmap?
That is the plan, but to be honest with you, like the work we've been doing has been very pilot project oriented. So it's like, okay, let's have a big vision of what things should look like in Web3 and blockchain. But then let's have a specific project to actually make that work. And so when you get to like, okay, let's make this actually work with Cardano, there is so much that's very unique and specific to Cardano that very much makes it, makes it a Cardano specific project, right? Like we are Cardano native projects. Like, so figuring out how to make this work in Cardano, and we're fine with that. Like we love Cardano. Yes, it's a little bit more complicated from a technical perspective because the EUTXO model. And you could argue that the development tooling around the system isn't as mature as some other blockchains, but we think it's all worth it. Like we think that Cardano has been designed the right way for long-term reliability and durability, and that's why we want to build on it. So, but absolutely yes. Like I think Landano, just by virtue of its name, has to, is a Cardano-based project. But yeah, of course, in theory, we could say, okay, you could apply the same processes and create an NFT for this land record on another blockchain, but we're choosing not to do that. For OrcFax, yes, I think you're right. Like definitely, we see that as having potential of being an oracle for reporting off-chain information to other blockchains as well. And we can leverage a lot of the technology infrastructure for that to go cross-chain there. And then certainly Arkly definitely is meant to be chain agnostic, other than it right now is very tightly bundled to Arweave. Like it uses Arweave decentralized storage. We envision a point in time where you can check a few boxes and you say, okay, have one copy on the Arweave network, one on IPFS network, and one on here's my S3 bucket. So drop it there. So we see Arkly kind of working across back-end chains at some point, but certainly is meant to be, and I don't know if Arweave itself is a very interesting technology. It's providing a lot of like archiving storage for L1 blockchains, like the entire L1 blockchain of like Solana and other types of a number of other like Near protocol, I think, and other blockchains like this. So it's a whole ecosystem in and of itself that has lots of room for growth and interesting innovation. But again, our goal is to kind of bring that to Cardano, is to say there's a lot of interesting things going on here. We can benefit from that in Cardano as well. All
right. Another reference link I have to look through and learn a little bit more about. I have heard of it, but I haven't dug deep into it. There's plenty of stuff going in the Cardano ecosystem alone, let alone to jump over to another storage data system. So it's a lot to go through. This is absolutely amazing what you guys are putting together. Now, I know you guys are going through Catalyst to get funding there. Do you have other forms of funding? Like all these projects, people listening in on this and thinking, oh, this is amazing, this is great, maybe we can leverage some of the services there. But they want to make sure that you guys are around and funded for 2 years.
That's a great question. And so again, we've just been super fortunate. Like Landano has given us this initial seed funding. Like we've gotten maybe around $200,000 or $300,000 now, I think, from Catalyst, and that's enough for our team to be, is enough of an on ramp right until December for us. And so we're essentially just saying this is our last Project Catalyst ask. We want to be Project Catalyst independent as well. Like I think Project Catalyst is a great place to seed ideas, to grow them, nurture them, and then it's a kind of a launch pad, right? So we're at that, and this is basically the name of our Fund 9 proposal is launching Landano on mainnet. So it's like, we've got two rounds of funding to help us kind of lead up to this. And we now feel like with this last ask, we've got to take the technology and get it into production ready mainnet, clean up a number of loose ends, finish up some integrations like the IMX integration. So our goal is if we are fortunate enough to get the Catalyst Fund 9 grant, that gives us an on-ramp all the way into the new year, into 2023. Our goal is to launch on mainnet in March 2023. And then at that time, we will have do an initial coin offering and potentially an ISPO. And so our hope is that we can use that crowd-based fundraising as our next way to put some money in the treasury and give us a healthy enough on-ramp for another year or two of development, at which point we'll switch 100% to like transaction fee-based sustainability model. So bootstrapping has been like one of my skills that I've learned in the open source world for doing digital archive systems. So our goal is, is to be able to bootstrap this entire thing from that initial Catalyst seed grant, and to the point where we can get the system self-sustainable. And then we do have partners that are connected to other sources of funding, like international grant organizations. So we're not ruling out that we're going to use a few more of those potentially along the way to get us where we need to go. But we're really hoping that this Fund 9 Catalyst grant is what gets us over the line to then essentially have our own financial independence from that point forward with our coin offering and our transaction fees.
Fingers crossed. Really hope you guys get the Catalyst funding. I'll put all the links to everything in the show notes so that everyone can check out the Catalyst proposal. I think voting is pushed back a little bit at the moment, but check out the Catalyst proposal, put it onto your read list and hopefully your vote list as well. So this is absolutely amazing. Peter, this has been really eye-opening, I think. The amount of development that you guys have done, the amount of support that you've had through Project Catalyst, and the actual forming of the company and everything around it has been really, really cool to hear, and watch your development around this space. So thank you for joining me on the episode, talking about the project and everything around it, and good luck with the Project Catalyst Fund 9 voting.
That's right. I really appreciate the time. Thanks, Pete. Take care.
Now, if you're interested in any of the Project Catalyst proposals that he spoke about, they're all in the links down in the show notes for you, so you can find out a little bit more about them and consider them in your voting process for Fund 9 of Project Catalyst. I do have a few videos coming up in regards to how to go through voting, how to filter down various proposals, using all the tools that the community has built over the last few proposals as well. So if you're interested in digging deep and spending some time in going through all these proposals, there are a couple of resources for you coming right up. So please make sure you give me that thumbs up, click subscribe, click on that notification bell, and you'll get the notification as soon as those videos come out. All right, I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.